Okay, good evening and welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, October 10th. Rachel, could I get a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Joe Greer.
Present.
Jessica West. Present. Keith Bevan.
Present.
Dom Gelsomino.
Present.
Michelle Jensen.
Present.
Jackson Jones.
Present.
John Nesmith is absent. Mike Pepin.
Here.
Craig Steele is absent.
Okay, item number 2 is an adoption of the agenda. Could I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Madam President,
Yes.
a motion to adopt the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Madam President, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So item number 3, we need an approval of the minutes for both the June 13th special meeting minutes and the September 12th special meeting minutes, which were both activities. Can I get a motion for an approval?
Madam President,
Yes.
a motion, I move that we approve.
Can I get a second?
Madam President, I second.
Do we need to have a motion to approve the full information?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you rephrase that?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, I move that we approve the full reading. Oh, both minutes, I apologize. Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Madam President, I move that we approve, that I second that we approve both meeting minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have announcements, which would be me. I'm glad I read that. So we did have a farewell to Hannah Studevant and Kayla McNay, and we now have some new commissioners. We have Don Gelsomino, okay, and Jackson Jones, and so we would like to welcome you both to the commission. As you see, there's a process, and so it's typically, if there's something that I'm not sure about, I always give a little glance over to Emily because she is our attorney, and she will let us know if it's correct. And so if she gives you a little side nod, don't be offended because we just want to make sure we're on record correctly. And then we have commissioner reappointments. So myself, Jessica West, and Keith Bevins all reapplied and have been reappointed, but that doesn't go through until, I believe, next week, Tuesday? Yeah. So hopefully that's approved.
There we go. This coming Tuesday, it'll be on the council agenda.
What's that? Oh, yeah, I know. I'm like, that's the other thing. Well, and then we also have Genesis. That's not on here. Is that something that should be noted, that we have a new city council liaison? So welcome, Genesis. It's nice to see you. And so she will then report to us or report back to City Council so that we have communication between the two. So now we have upcoming events.
But before we go there,
Pause.
I just want to, on behalf of the department, put our thanks on the record to Hannah and Kayla.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I just want to make sure we don't gloss over that. I know you did mention them, but they have officially stepped off the commission, but they've been wonderful, wonderful additions to the commission, and sorry to see them go. Excited for the new members as well, but I just want to recognize their amazing contribution to the commission while they were able to serve.
Absolutely, and I know that Hannah was moving on to something different, so of course we hope that that is exactly what she wants to do, because it was sad to see her go, but we do, like you said, get to see some new faces, and I believe Kayla's expired, is that, or did she step down? It was an expiration, okay.
Yeah, hers was an expiration, and
Okay.
Jackson is here to fill the youth seat.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. Thank you, Steve.
And for the new commissioners, could we just take 2 minutes and let them introduce themselves on the record?
What a great idea. Who would like to go first? It's at you, Jackson.
So I'm Jackson Jones, and I'm with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and that's how I found out about this. And so I decided to apply, and here I am.
So Jackson, which school do you go to?
I go to Central Academy.
Okay.
It's an alternative school.
Okay, I like that. And so you're on the MIAC, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And so what was your interest in the Parks and Rec Commission?
I just love like Parks and Recs. I love working on movie night with Renee White, and so I decided to sign up for this and see what it's about, and so far I like it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Madam President, thank you so much. My name is Dom Gelsomino. I am now going on my 5th year as a graduate of Boise State University, go Broncos. Have served as a candidate for public office before. I ran for the legislature in 2014, ran for city council here in Meridian last year, and currently serve as government affairs advisor on MIAC as well. My passion for public service is why I'm here. I made a more positive choice after having learned my lesson last year in the election that whether you win or lose, you always stay involved. And I made the conscious and positive choice to continue to stay involved in city government and in serving my community despite the election loss last year, which was not a choice I had made when I was younger, when I lost my first race for public office. So my passion is to serve the people of Meridian and to make Meridian the best and strongest city that it can possibly be.
Well, no offense, but your loss is our gain because we get to have you on the commission. And I know based on meeting with you that you have a lot to offer. So I'm really excited for you to be here.
I think it's also worth noting that Dom had a specific interest in the dog park, which was one of the things I know the mayor mentioned when she appointed you.
That was a key item that he brought up. He mentioned some things that I had never really even considered about the dog park, like the speedway noise.
Yes, I am an avid participant at the dog park at Storybark Park, or as many on city council like to refer it to as the Charlie Roundtree Park. It's an incredible park. I mean, we are so incredibly fortunate compared to Boise, where they only have Morris Hill, and to be quite honest, it's not the most hygienic park, and it's not also the most presentable one for our dogs, for our community. So we do really, really well, and I'd like to see I'd like to see improvements and growth, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. Comments? All right, Shelley, you are up.
Hello, kind people. So glad you're all here tonight. We appreciate what you do for us on the commission. Contrary to some popular belief, this is not the time of year where we sit around and eat bonbons and contemplate the busyness of summer. In fact, our brains have switched gear into full autumn and winter mode, and even sneaking a little into spring. So we are as busy as ever right now. And so I wanted to remind you of the types of things we're working on right now. Very, very shortly, we'll be contacting you, yes, about the Christmas parade, the Winter Lights Parade. Traditionally, our commission rides a Santa's Workshop themed float in the parade, and you can wear goofy hats or collars or pointy shoes or whatever, jingle bells or whatever you like. So we'll talk about that soon. Before then, there are a few projects I want you to know about. Most urgently is our gigantic trunk or treat event. That'll be on a Thursday evening, October 25th, right here in downtown Meridian. And it is gangbusters. Our challenge right now is to try to lure more businesses, churches, schools, and organizations who are willing to host decorated trunks to hand out candy, trying to attract those while not building our customer base of little tiny families full of ghosts and goblins. We're trying to keep some balance. I think we've got about 90 or more trunks, but we really could use 15 or 20 or 30 more. So if you know of any church, school, business, civic club that might want to participate, it's free to participate, but they have to be willing to hand out about 4,000 pieces of candy. So if you know anyone that fits the bill, send them our way and we'll get them hooked up. Rake Up Meridian is coming up. That's something that we partner with Republic Services. Again, if you have a group that wants to rake or know of a senior or physically challenged person who can't take care of their own leaves, let us know. We'll get them hooked up. And beyond that, I've got our more detailed schedule of events. A lot we host ourselves and others are hosted by others. We're just now kind of ending our big glut of fun runs and walks, especially in Kleiner and Kleiner Park. This is the time of year and the month for that. So I would have you take a look at the events I'm showing you. We do have a town hall meeting on October 24th. It would be nice if we have some presence. I'm not sure yet of what the topic is. It's going to be over at Lakeview Golf Course. So we'll get you some details on that. If any of these events have your curiosity or you want to know more, feel free to contact me and I'll tell you the inside scoop. If you'd like to be present or volunteer or do something more, we're open to that as well. So take a look and see what catches your fancy. And as always, we're here if you need us. Thank you again for serving.
Shelley,
Madam
is the
President?
date?
On which?
Is the date for the parade on the 30th of November
No,
this year?
it's not on here. The date of the parade, it's a little early this year. It's Friday, November 30th. The parade actually starts at 6:30 p.m., but you all will have to be in place on the float prior to that. More like, 5:45, 6 p.m., just so we know that you've had time to park your car and find where the group is meeting. Usually the chamber actually unlocks their office a little early so you can socialize or get some coffee or cocoa or hot cider before the start of the parade. But we'll be asking you individually whether you plan to ride on the float or if you might have a spouse or companion or a child with you. And we'll get you those details, like where in the float lineup are you, what's your entry number and all that sort of thing, and what we'd like you to wear.
And we also, so I've been on the Christmas and Meridian Committee, the Parade Committee, and also help with the Winterland Festival. So I know that we also have a need for some volunteers for some of that, for the parade itself, but also the Winterland Festival is the week after on a Saturday, and we have tables set up with crafts, and so we're a little short on craft tables. So if you know any businesses that maybe want to market,
We've got some great craft ideas. We just need someone that's willing to provide the inexpensive supplies and the little manpower to help the kids with the scissors or the twisties or whatever the craft is, or the glue sticks or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So again, if you're interested in volunteering, where we talk about volunteers for trunk or treat or the Christmas parade, it's primarily traffic control, helping the flow of our guests, ensuring their safety, making sure kids don't dash out in the road, or that a car doesn't insist on coming through a road closure of some sort. So if anything like that sounds good to you, you just let us know, and boy, will you be sorry. We'll put you to work. Okay, any other questions?
Madam President? Yes. Shelley, I just want to thank you for all of the effort you put into in the Facebook and social media components. I very much appreciated your post about the fencing at Bark Park going up.
Yeah.
So that I was aware prior to going that my dog was not going to be run fully.
Yeah, our social media is really doing gangbusters. I think Meridian Parks and Rec is up over, the likes or followers are up over 7,000, and even the dog parks, I think about 1,150. So we're building our presence, and we started using Instagram as well, experimenting with that. So we try.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Madam President, I'd like to second that.
and you can share it that way. That's why
Yeah.
I like the social
Okay.
media posts.
Are we good?
I think so.
Okay, thank you all.
I do, I know the week of Thanksgiving, usually I fluff the trees. Renee thinks that's hysterical, but we get all the trees out that go on the stage that are decorations, and I usually wind up doing that by myself. So if anybody has time, I'm still finding out which day in particular, but we put all the trees together over at the Parks and Rec Maintenance Building. So if you guys want to help, it's a good time to do that. I would appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to the July team building activity debrief with Steve Sidaway.
And Madam President, I might suggest, since Hillary's on a bit of a tight timeline tonight to get to another meeting, that this would be a discussion that we could move to the end of the agenda. I just point out that the next two items are requesting the commissioner's feedback on our July team building activity at Hillsdale, and then our parks tour that we held in September. We'd love to get your feedback, but before we go and take the time to go down through everybody, if we could maybe table those items toward the end of the meeting and continue that discussion. I know that Hillary has somewhere she needs to be at 6:15, and I think it'd be a good use of time if we swapped.
Do we need to do anything for that, Emily? No? Okay. Absolutely. Welcome, Hillary.
Sorry. Thank you, Steve. I know you saw me over there, like looking at my phone. Great to see you all. Thanks for having me here. I'm back on behalf of the Meridian Arts Commission to talk about another partnership with the Parks and Rec Commission for a park identity project. And actually, we would like to approach 2 park identity projects simultaneously for this upcoming or current fiscal year. Steve and Mike had communicated to us that you guys were interested in pursuing a park identity project at Champion Park. And the Parks Commission, or the Arts Commission, also wanted to pursue simultaneously a park identity project at Renaissance Park. So I had handed out before your meeting some copies of the request for proposals. These are modeled essentially in the same format as the Heroes Park identity art project, but the budget is different because these are neighborhood parks. And then if you guys want me to go through it, I can go through it, but I'll just point out some key details. So the budget is $40,000 for each of them. We offer a stipend to the artists to develop and submit proposals, including maquettes. And we ask that parks commissioners, up to 3 parks commissioners, serve as panelists to help score those proposals. So on the back, you'll see an estimated timeline. And we did pick a time, January 9th, 2019, at 3 p.m. So that would be before one of your guys' Parks and Rec Commission meetings, hoping that that would be more convenient convenient for you than less convenient. I know it would make your evening a little longer, but hopefully it's fun to hear the proposals and get to ask questions, and then be able to share with your commission afterwards. If you guys approve this RFP, I will take it to the Arts Commission tomorrow to approve with their quorum as a group, and then we would approach City Council on Tuesday, October 16th, for their approval. That's not standard that you have to ask for council's approval for an RFP, but we want to make sure that they're satisfied with the projects that we're spending our MAPS money on, our funding on. So it's their opportunity to say that they're in favor of these 2 sites in particular before we actually select an artist and make a recommendation for completed pieces. We did include on Champion Park that the roads in the adjacent neighborhood are named after local coaches and that the overall theme should be sports-oriented. And then in the Renaissance Park site description, we included that the overall theme should be oriented towards the Renaissance era in some way. But those streets are named after a variety of Renaissance type of events, people, themes, even just Tuscany, themes. So it's kind of open-ended, and we're interested to see what artists would propose. This RFP would go out to the same 3 artists from your art roster that we established in 2015, I think.
Madam President, and Hillary, so on the request for proposal, there's a mention about providing park identity, but we didn't include something that would specify that the art could be functional in some manner, to be as far as like a climbing or some kind of function to add to the park.
Okay. Do you guys want it to be functional?
Is that an option? Well, I know with Champion Park, it's a very small park, right? And we don't have a lot of unique items that provide, activity and function there. And so I know we discussed it before as far as if art could be functional. And I was present in the RFP for Heroes Park, and that came up when we were asking questions to the artists as far as their presentations were artful, but not necessarily created to have function, like to be climbable or to serve any other purpose as far as interaction with park users.
Okay.
Well, I would like to propose that we make art include it functional so that it provides an added benefit or activity or some kind of other addition to the park.
Do you have a comment on that, Steve?
I do, based on my discussion with Councilwoman Milam a couple days ago, or yesterday. And feel, I don't want to speak for you, so feel free to speak for yourself. But I think what I just threw out to start the conversation is, I do think that functional art should be on the table as something that we would like to consider. And examples could be, something climbable or something that is, an artistic bike rack or or artistic benches or things like that become park amenities as well as art. One of the points, feedback I got back from Councilwoman Milam was that maybe a bigger desire, even more than function, is visibility. So that not just those that are in the park know it's there, but that people that are driving by have something to see. Again, I'm not sure that has to be a requirement either, but I think the visibility and the functionality are all things that could be incorporated as items that they could respond to. Do you have anything to add?
Madam Chair, yeah, you summed it up pretty well. I guess my concern to Steve was, spending almost 2 years worth of MAPS funding for two small parks that maybe don't see a whole lot of our general population. And so since it is for public art and not park art necessarily, just my idea was to do something more towards the outside of the park so that it served as art in the city as well as the park. Though I don't have a problem with functional art. Functional art is great. One of those solo swings, Steve. Really pretty one. But yeah, that was the thought behind that, was rather than just sticking all of the money into a park that maybe doesn't see a whole lot of people, to everybody that maybe drives by can also appreciate the art and the funds spent on the art.
Something to draw them into the park. Yeah.
So would it be on, still within the park, or somewhere outside of the subdivision should draw people into the subdivision to the park if it is not visible from a major street?
Right, that's a tough one too.
The only land we own and control is in the park.
Yeah, in the park.
We couldn't do it
At the
out on
entry
the
of the
street
park.
and have land that we would
That's kind of what I was.
have control over. So it would need to be in the park.
Madam President,
Yeah.
and I think that's, it kind of goes in with that, trying to bring people into the park is to, put something there that is unique, that attracts people, and that's why I like the idea of having art that provides some kind of function, because it's some unique thing that the other parks may not have that identifies the park, but it also does something. So someone would be excited to go there, and, I keep saying climbing, but we've talked about misting stations and water fountains. You can make it art and have a beautiful display of a champion with water coming out somehow in a misting station. I'm just saying, there's I don't know exactly how, but I feel like we'd get more out of the funds being used that way, I guess is all I'm trying to say. I think we'd get more out of the money if we add a function.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Madam President.
Oh, sorry. I totally agree with what Jessica is saying. So, these two specific parks, it may not do a lot of good to put them on the outside without being there at the entrance. But it's something to keep in mind to draw people into the park, and also so that more people can appreciate it. But also functionality. And I think there are probably a lot of really cool things other than benches and trash cans that can be done that have functionality.
Did you want to say something? Madam President, would it satisfy the commission if we included a line in the site description that said something to the effect of panelists are interested in seeing proposals that include some type of functionality towards the park or visibility to draw people into the park? And then it's not necessarily a requirement, but it gives advice
And
to
it
what the
gives
proposal
right
would be.
direction. Does that sound good to the rest of the commission?
Madam President,
Yes.
Hillary, do your firms on the roster even have the capability to provide a response to an RFP that has stipulations like that in it?
I think that our artists do have the capability to reply to an RFP like that. Many of the artists that we work with, including actually most of them on the art roster, if not all of them, usually are awarded a contract and then work with other local contractors to help them complete designs.
And then a follow-up to that, the budget identified seems a little low to be considering more than maybe what was previously thought when you put the draft together. So that would be not something we have to talk about here, but that's just one item that I consider when we start talking about adding to the scope and complexity. $40,000 doesn't go very far.
Madam President, to kind of go off of my colleagues' comments, you know, I bring a little bit of experience from growing up near the San Diego area. And one of the parks I fell in love with growing up as a child was Balboa Park. And there's a lot of art. There's, you know, excuse me, the Balboa Park is very famous not only for its greenery and the beauty of it, but it has art, it has culture, it has history, it has, you could say, in one park, it has all of our commissions in the city combined for the most part. And, you know, I agree there should be some functionality, and we are seeing that, as was mentioned in the tour, at Discovery Park. But again, going to Commissioner Mike's comments and to Councilwoman Milam's comments, it's designating which parks who are larger could have that functionality, and then the smaller parks, you know, maintaining our budget maintaining our budget in mind and making sure that we are designating those functional art pieces to parks where there is a bigger flow of traffic. And, you know, the smaller parks that don't get as much traffic, maybe doing artwork that could be functional, but if not, it's, you know, it's still there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Just my 2 cents is we're going to have to be kind of picky as far as that, because most of our neighborhood parks are off the street in the neighborhood. So having something to draw people in becomes a problem. And I think it ends up costing more than the value we get out of it. Because again, there's neighborhood parks in the middle of places. Functionality can still be there, and I don't think we need to move away from that so much, but I think we need to really look at each park individually to determine which ones we want to have that draw versus just functional art or art in itself, you know, by itself. You know, helps, you know, because a lot of the reason that this came about was because of us trying to theme our parks and give them an identity all their own. And we've been really good at our new parks making that happen in the beginning. So it's going back through Champion and Seasons and all these other parks that we have and giving them their identity. So it's just my 2 cents.
And Steve, my question with the retheming of the parks, so is this our retheming, is having art, or do we also have a budget to do something with the park itself to update it?
For theming?
Yeah.
We do not have a separate budget, no. And that's, so I would say my comment is, you know, reinforcing the identity with the art for me is number one. And I think that's pretty well written in there. I think that has been the goal and the discussion that we've had with the mayor and council to date about our intent in engaging with these art projects. But whether it's functional or visible and draw people in, I mean, those are added bonuses.
Essentially, RFPs are good, but we want him to blow our socks off, right? I mean,
Right. Well, and that's, Madam Chair, that's the whole point of doing an RFP,
Right,
so that you guys
exactly.
can see what the artists come up with, because we've in the past been really surprised to see some of the ideas that our local creative minds have come up with that we can't consider because I'm not a professional artist.
So maybe we can have that information added, but it's not a requirement, like you said, so it's more like a direction. So if they could come up with something that would be functional, great, but it doesn't necessarily rule them out of the running.
Correct. And I can include that here written into the RFP, and then we also do site visits for both of the parks. So it's something that we could reiterate again. And you all are welcome to also come to those site visits as well to help communicate what your expectations are. I've also reached out to the HOAs in those two areas to see if they could send a representative as well.
So Emily, as an action item, does this need to have a motion? Do we need to vote, or?
I believe yes.
I think so too.
Madam Chair, I think it does require action on your part, though the listing it as an action item is not what makes that so. It's
Okay.
that I think you're looking for a recommendation.
A recommendation.
Madam President, I'd like to make a recommendation to add the wording to include function as being something that we're interested in seeing in the request for proposals from the vendors.
Does that include a motion to approve it?
And motion to approve that.
Let's do that all in one motion.
Greg Still seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Sorry it took a little bit longer.
Madam President and Hillary, do you need the 3 commissioners identified tonight, or? Okay.
Just before January 9th.
Okay, then let's maybe put it on the radar that we would like to invite up to 3 commissioners to join a panel that includes some staff members, as well as the mayor's been invited, and Arts Commission members as well. Who was involved in the Heroes Park Arts selection? Jessica was, Mike and I were. Anyway, it'll be a very similar process to that one, where they will bring samples. And we were shocked at the thought and the different, they were completely different from one another at that one. They will come up with things that we will not have dreamed of. But to Commissioner Pepin's point, I do think we need to moderate our expectations based on the budget. It is half the budget that we had at Heroes Park, so they won't be, they'll be half as grand,
Right.
but half the budget.
They have to be realistic.
And costs have gone up. So we just need to keep that in mind. But they are smaller parks as well. So
Right.
anything we can do with a smaller budget, spread that, share that, get something done at 2 parks instead of 1. I think it's great, and I'm really happy that we're moving forward.
Madam President,
Yes.
I would like to go ahead and throw my name in to volunteer because I think this is an area of interest of mine.
Throw my name in too.
Do you want us to email you, Rachel, if we have interest? Would that work so that we have record? Okay.
Would
So
be
if
wonderful.
you're in-
Thank you.
If you're interested in that, does it need to be, thank you so much. Is it okay if it's more than 3, or does it need to be at least 3?
No, it needs to be up to 3, not more than 3. So to keep the size manageable and a mix of representation from both commissions, I think the selection committee structure would be up to 3 members from each commission.
Okay. I already emailed you. Sorry. Okay, moving on. So we just heard from Hillary. So going back through new business, we have the West Ada Rec District, the Ward Fuller Park update.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to come up front. Pull up the PowerPoint. This will be relatively brief, but I thought it would be timely to give you an update on Fuller Park. We did, most of you went to see it with us on the parks tour, so this will not be new to you. But I did want to report back that we have the agreement signed and in place. Starting October 1, just a week and a little bit ago, we officially took over maintenance and operations of the park. Ward still owns the park until a year from now, at which point the ownership would transfer. To get ready for that date, we have a lot of activities to do to get ready for that over the next year. The first of which is some due diligence, ordering an environmental report, inspecting the new restrooms for ADA, looking at the existing infrastructure for needed capital improvements down the road, and items related to that I'll get into as I show some pictures. I think overall, having been there yourselves, I think my main message is it's a beautiful park, and we're very blessed to have it. So it has been in the city of Meridian since I think the 80s, and was developed by the Western Rec District for the city before there was a city parks department, right? So years ago there was not a city parks department. Since that time, the city has taken off, and we have built numerous parks. And the time kind of came that everyone in the city thinks this park is a city park anyway. So and we do parks, and we do them well, and let's just make it part of the city system. Beautiful park. I love this shot that Shelley took. Is Shelley still here? She's gone. But Shelley went out and took some photos for me. I think this pond is certainly one of its signature features. For me, when you drive in, the main thing you notice are these huge trees when you come into the parking lot. It's got these grand cottonwoods that run down the center as an alley of trees with parking on both sides. We don't have any parks other than Story that have anything close to this in terms of the maturity and the size of trees that are in them. As I mentioned, the pond is probably the next main feature that you notice. The playground, of course, is a favorite. We've got the a newer playground that is there. You can see the zoomed out image of the playground area and all the different play structures. This is the new restroom. It's in the process of being finalized. One of the blessings, I guess, of having the turnover structured the way it is, it allows Ward to continue, since they continue to own the park, they can own the finalization and the warranty period for the restroom. Mike was just out there earlier this week and documented punch list items related to ADA items that we found that need to be corrected. These are just two of the shelters. I believe there's four. Colin's not, is that right? Four shelters in the park, and these are two of them. Ball fields. There are 3 ball fields in the park. This is one of them. Did you have a question?
So would the shelters of this park be similar to the other parks, or those would be spaces that people could reserve?
Yeah, they will be reservable, yes.
Okay.
There's one that Ward has never reserved, and it's always just been first come, first served only. It's one of the things we're going to have to talk about this winter before next season is, are we going to just follow the same model? Fortunately, their fee structure fits right into what our fee structure is, so I'm anticipating our fees to be the same today anyway. We still have to take a fee schedule to council for approval before next spring. But I think the fees will be similar, and then most, if not all, will be reservable in our system.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So the ball fields, This one's kind of cut off the way that it fit into the PowerPoint slide, but there is a large flagpole that is in honor of Jim Fuller, who was the original donor of the park land to the district. Some additional amenities out there, like the volleyball courts. We walked on some of the pathways. You see one of the pathways there, and it does connect into our larger system there as well. What do we call that pathway? All of a sudden I just blanked on it. The Blackstone pathway. That's right. Now, before I move on, I did want to be upfront that we do know that there are some bumps and bruises. These are beautiful, and you can tell by and large it is beautiful. But I do want to be upfront that, hey, this is a 40-year-old park. There are some bumps and bruises that we're going to find moving in. You know, there's some holes in the dugouts. There's some the fence toppers for the ball fields have some cracks. There are some fencing that has been, soft tossed into for long enough that they're bowed, bent. Some of the posts, I'm not sure what happened. Looks like it's been run into with a mower or something. But there are some bumps and bruises like these that we are going to look into and try and create a plan for capital replacements down the road. But we went into this knowing that there were probably several $100,000 of capital improvements that will be needed to bring this up to the standards that we hold to in the rest of our park system. So back to the pretty pictures. I think overall the effect is a great one. The large trees, the water, proof that we have taken over. This is our guys out there mowing the grass. This past week, we are actually out there. So we're excited to take over Fuller Park, and we are jumping in with both feet, and I'll stand for any questions.
Steve, do we have anything, or is there anything at the park that explains Fuller Park? You said was it Jeff Fuller?
So Jim.
Jim.
Yeah, I didn't work the picture in. We might be able to, I don't know if you can look into the photos. There was a photo of a plaque that's out there as part of this, the flagpole area that describes who Jim Fuller is, and his donation of the park and why it's named after him. So yes, there is a plaque with that information on it.
Only because it's beautiful, and I feel like he should have credit for the donation.
It is not going to be in that one. It's going to be on the Y Drive.
Madam President. Steve, what size are the ball fields? Are they for Little League, Pony, Legion, softball?
They are Little League-sized fields.
Okay. One other thing, it's a whole lot cheaper to put the couple $100,000 into it than buy a whole new park like this. So, so the money's going to be well spent.
And for this year, they are paying the city the cost of the operations as if we're their contractor. $276,000 is being transferred from West Virginia Rec District to the city. A large portion of that goes to the operations, and there's about $90,000 left over of that amount that could go toward the beginning of those capital improvements.
So would it be appropriate with the city taking over this park to have some type of ribbon cutting so that we could maybe honor the family who donated it?
Something to talk about. We don't have a specific budget for it, but not if we do a typical ribbon cutting, there's not a lot of cost with that anyway. Bigger cost if we're talking a big party like we did with Hillsdale, but
probably not like that. I just think it's really exciting.
Madam President, I agree. I mean, I was just thinking a little bit ago, how do we? Because when I went on that bus tour, I discovered parks that I didn't know, and I've been here 8 years. Yeah. I didn't know even existed. So I think a low budget, low cost ribbon cutting would be a great advertising. And I mean, Shelley takes amazing pictures, shoots it on the social media, and suddenly all our constituents know where Fuller Park is.
As a First Plus recommendation, I would suggest that maybe we, plan ahead for this for next October 1-ish, when we actually take ownership of it and celebrate the fact that, hey, because that's what we don't own it today, but we plan to own it starting October 1 of next year.
Next year, okay.
So we could plan for some kind of a ceremony a year from now.
But didn't we add one of our plaques that we normally do to the park or whatever?
Yeah, we still need to think about the signage, and there is still a sign out there that mentions Western Indirect District, I believe. So we need to, there's going to be a changeover period because it does have Ward's name on things out there today.
I had no idea there was a pond there, and I've been to that park. Until we went and walked, so it was, jaw-dropping. It's beautiful.
So you can see Rachel did fine, thank you, the
Yes,
plaque
thank you, Rachel.
that is out there that describes Jim Fuller and the Jim Fuller Appreciation Day in 1981, at which they donated the acreage of the park.
Madam President?
Yes.
Real quick, Steve, bringing up the pond, we've had a little bit of a crisis, and I don't know if it's pertinent, but it just popped into my mind. With the crisis we've had with the algae blooms and the issues we've had, or Boise's had with their ponds, will the water in this pond also be regularly tested?
Well, unlike the Boise ones, these are not for swimming, so it's not tested in the same way as a public swimming hole. But as far as the algae blooms go, we do treat our ponds. You want to talk about that, Mike?
Great question. So we have a contractor that works on call that treats our ponds for both algae and aquatic weeds. Usually the aquatic weeds we do when in the wintertime, that you put a product in there and it sits over the winter when you're not irrigating, and it kind of it causes the weeds to die. But during the growing season, they come out and they'll actually treat and spray for algae, and we just monitor that and call them. And the reason that we contract that out as opposed to doing it in-house is because all of our ponds are considered waters of the U.S. Even though they're irrigation ponds, they have an inflow and an outflow, so there's some NPDES permitting that you need to do, and we'd prefer to just let a contractor handle that. And there's wildlife around, and there's fish in there, and we think we're better off with just letting a
professional
that what they do for a living is treat water. So we've had really good success. We've looked around, and and this person can also identify the difference between just regular algae and the blue-green type, and we've never had it.
So I didn't see any evidence of a problem with the geese at this park. So have they just learned that this isn't a place for them to?
I believe they've done goose control. So we will be doing goose control at this as well.
Is there an issue at this park?
Yes.
I'm sure.
There is?
Yes,
Okay.
very much so.
I was just curious with the water.
There is. Oh, yeah.
They do a good job of hiding it.
The same gentleman that chases geese for us at Kleiner Park was doing this one.
Oh.
And we'll probably continue with him, or we've actually been looking at another person to maybe kind of spread some of that
Kind of help.
those services out. So yeah, we'll chase geese here.
Very nice.
Madam President,
Yes.
if you are in need of an expert goose chaser, I have a four-legged fur child who would love to chase your geese. He does so at Julia Davis, and he does so, well, he used to do so at Julius Kleiner until they started having their goslings and became quite aggressive. So, but I have a four-legged goose chaser if you need one.
That's awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting. Okay. Sorry, Barb, to keep you waiting. You're so patient. So we have Barb Hatch here with the volunteer program update.
Thank you.
I think we need a couple more. Pass them down. We get blowers.
There is a little bit of participation on your part in my presentation, so that's why I've handed you out your prop there, and I'll let you know when your cue is, okay? All righty. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and welcome all the new members of the commission. And I'm going to give you an overview of what I do. Last time I was here, I just spoke about the Park Ambassador Program, but as you'll see, I wear many hats in the city, and so I'd like to give you that a little bit of a brief overview. Whoops, can we go back one? I think this is kind of a timely quote that I just found, but it says, "Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in." And I think Meridian is really fortunate that we have some super people in this town that step up and roll up their sleeves and help us and make these things happen. One of the first things that we do is our third grade tour volunteers. We have about 5 volunteers that love to dress up in period costumes and tell the kids about the past, present, and future of Meridian. We are 1/3 of the field trip. They go over to the Pine Street School and learn about the olden days. They also walk down Main Street and do the history of the buildings, and then they come here and they get a 50-minute tour of all 3 levels. And we do about 70 of these, both at the beginning of the school season and at the end. And I figure about 30 kids in each class, so we're doing at least 2,100 students learning about the city of Meridian. And I think one of the most amazing things is the lady down here next to the train conductor. She's 82 years old, and she walks all 3 flights of this building, and she will do up to 3 tours back to back. And the gentleman next to her is only 25 years old, and he tells me he can take 2 tours, but he can't possibly do 3. So this little powerhouse here is just simply amazing. Okay, we also have our front desk volunteers. This came about in January of 2013. The mayor decided that there was something missing in the front of the building here and that you couldn't find any employees to ask directions of. And a lot of people just stared at the directory, and then when employees walked by scurrying off to the restroom, they were stuck helping the people. And so the mayor said, well, what if we put a desk there and we could find kind residents to come and man this for us? And so it's one of my most successful programs. I have 25 to 35 people that sit there, and it's only a job that requires 1 person, but volunteering is all about getting out and getting to know other people and, you know, just getting that just additional communication with people. So we put 2 people there at a time, and they've become the best of friends. And I actually have a wait list on this program. I could put bleachers out there and have lots and lots of people sitting there. But these volunteers, in the beginning, we were just going to tally how many people came by just in our first year, but we've been going at it, and we're getting 10,000 guests a year that we again, interact with. Some people go to the community development area and they come out kind of frustrated. They seem to have a lot of red tape on how they need to put their fence up and permits and things like that. And they'll come to this desk and they'll vent a little bit, and then our older guys tell a couple bad, corny jokes, and the people go off, you know, just a little bit brighter. So it really does serve a purpose. And what the 2 people are doing down below is we have hundreds and hundreds of pieces of mail that come to City Hall from people that no longer work here. And so they're going through and calling all of those businesses and asking to be taken off of these subscriptions. And then we have our Park Ambassador Program, which I hope most of you are very familiar with. It's been going on, this is its 6th season right now. And the way I advertise this is it has to be a win-win situation. We can't ask volunteers just to come over and kind of do our dirty work for us. We have to make it where they want to come back. And so I advertise this, that the benefits of volunteering are you're out of the house and meeting new people. You get outdoors for fresh air. It increases your physical activity, hopefully. It can lower your blood pressure, giving health benefits. And there's studies that greenery lowers the stress level. So they're giving back to the community, generates feel-good pheromones. So if you can't drink red wine and chocolate, at least come on out to the park and get those same benefits there. And again, I ask people, make this work for you. We have one park ambassador that comes out and plays the disc golf along Kleiner Park. We have another gentleman that's helping in Story Park, and he trims the rose bushes. Debbie got transferred over there and didn't know a thing about a rose bush, and so he's helping her learn how to keep our rose bushes in good condition. And we have a couple different modes of transportation we use in this program. The upper left picture is our former Park Ambassador vehicle. It's been put out to pasture this season, and we're just about to obtain a brand new 2019 Chevy Equinox. And I can't thank the city enough for this. It just shows the volunteers that their contributions to the city matter. It really says they're willing to put some money behind this program, and that what we're doing is worthwhile to the city. So that is going to be a huge gift to this program. We also have the little electric egg, we call that. It's a Polaris gem car, completely electric, and they tool around Kleiner Park in that, which is a 60-acre-plus park. And most of my people are retired, so some of them have limited walking abilities, so this is a very handy vehicle to let them do the rounds out there. We've acquired 4 bikes in the program. I actually have a couple of them in storage right now because we don't have the ability to put them out in our maintenance areas, but I'm hoping as we grow we can get those into Discovery Park and other places where, again, they can hop on a bike. And then the golf cart down there sits at Settlers Park, so they can make the rounds in Settlers. And we've been doing this Park Ambassador program since the 1st of May of 2013, and overall these people have contributed 13,156 hours. So that's additional eyes and ears on our park that we didn't have prior to this program. And now my wish list for the future of the Park Ambassador program is, you might recognize this Disney character. This is the fairy godmother from Cinderella, and I was going to superimpose Mr. Barton's face on this because he's kind of my fairy godmother on my wish. And that is, as we grow these parks and we build these maintenance facilities, that if we could just include a little tiny bit for the Park Ambassador program. This is the maintenance shop at the Kleiner Park, and it was intended to be their kitchen, but we've kind of taken it over. And we do have schedules out there. All of the events that Shelley publicizes, I put out there because these people, again, are ambassadors to our city. So I want them to know what kind of events are going on so they can talk to people. So the bulletin board keeps a lot of information on that. We have timesheets, of course, and all sorts of things that they need to check in and take care of. And again, we're just encroaching on what was really meant to be the for our staff. And they've been kind and kind of share, but if we can in the future, maybe just something the size of a phone booth to put these items in and as we grow this program. We also have groups that come out, and this is just a list of the people that have contacted me since May. They're an accumulation of schools, churches, First Interstate Bank, Mountain West Bank, and they reach out to me and say, we have a community service day, what can we do in our parks? And this just keeps growing every year. So the word's getting out that Meridian Parks is a place to be and come to do your community service. We appreciate that. And this is the Sensi group. I don't know if you can see on the t-shirt, but they have kind of a neat slogan here, Sensi Service Squad, and down there in orange, it's Sent to Help, S-C-E-N-T. So they're pretty clever in their marketing, but they were out there a while ago, and I believe they were putting bark out in the playgrounds for us, and it's great because now these people are doing repeat business with us and coming back every year. Then one of the things I spend a lot of time on is assisting Renee White with her community events, the 4th of July Community Block Party, Trunk or Treat, Winter Lights, Holiday Parade, Children's Winterland Festival, and others. And I'm a firm believer that giving your time should be kind of short and sweet. I want you to return. I don't want you outside in 100-degree heat or 7 degrees in the winter, out there for 4 hours. I'm hoping if I give you a 2.5-hour shift, I make it a positive experience that you'll come back again. There's only 100,000 people in this town, and I think I've pretty much gone through them all, so I like repeat business. And so for the 4th of July, we had 69 people out there, about the same for the community block party. A 7-hour day really means about 4 shifts of volunteers, and I like to keep it really nice and positive, so when I ask you again, you will say yes for me. The movie night was, the volunteers came from the Rocky Mountain National Honor Society students, as well as Jackson over there. And this is a great group. I asked the advisor, how is it that they never don't show up? They never flake out on us. And she said, if there's one no-show, they're booted out of the program. So if they are sick or anything else, it's their responsibility to find a replacement. So if we have 12 on a list, Renee can be assured that 12 people are showing up. And it's just been phenomenal. It's the best group to work with. And this summer, Renee had 14 movies, and so they gave 518 hours of setting up everything, cleaning up, staying well after midnight. I also learned that students aren't supposed to be out past midnight, because I knew that Renee said they were out there till 12:45 in the morning. And I said, well, why did the timesheets all reflect noon? Well, there's a curfew. You can't be out after midnight. So I kind of learned that they fudged on their, they didn't get enough hours recorded because I guess they didn't want the Meridian Police to see the timesheet. And what we're coming up now on is one of the biggest things of the year for me, and that's the holiday parade. This is a shot right outside the council area here of our lobby. I was giving a safety orientation before all these people dispersed out onto the parade route. And I just handed you a flyer for looking for volunteers and my business card as well. And I wrote on the back of that if you can help me find 2 volunteers, I'd really appreciate it. It truly takes a village to round up these people. I'm getting a lot. I go to businesses like First Interstate, and I'm like, will you come out again? No, we're going to have a float this year. We want to be in the parade. So everyone that's kind of able-bodied and doesn't mind the cold, they're in the parade already. So, and then also I got another wrench in the system that the Meridian Police Department is insisting that these volunteers be 18 or over. And last year I went to our legal department and asked Bill Neri about that, and he said as long as you supply them with a yellow reflective vest, we should be good. But upon having Lieutenant Coliani at our last meeting, he's pretty insistent that these should be 18 and over. So I think probably 50% of my volunteer base came from the high school students, and so I have an even bigger challenge. And as well, we met. Oh, I got ahead of myself here. Shoot. This is your cue. This is to thank you guys, and I want you to toot your own horn. So get out your blower, and everybody get a little rah-rah for you. There you go. There you go. I wish they made noise, but that's hats off to what you do. I would be remiss if I didn't show the contributions that you've made. So welcome to the people that are new and the people that are on their way out. Again, this park department wouldn't operate without your contributions on that. And I'll leave you with this closing idea that don't ever question the value of volunteers. Noah's Ark was built by volunteers. The Titanic was built by professionals. And I actually found a little cartoon on Shelley helped me find that. But I hate to use this number because it's not a true reflection of all that volunteers give, but there's something called the independent sector, and they put a value on an hourly rate for a volunteer. And in Idaho right now, it's $19.92 an hour, and that went up 2% from last year. The national average is $26.42, I believe. But we use this number when you're requesting grants and other things just to show what the value is. Now, I know we're all saying the city would never pay someone $19.92 to do what they're doing, but again, it's just kind of a measuring gauge to know the contributions that a volunteer can give. And so if you take the 6,762 hours that we have right now and multiply that, we're coming up with $134,699 of additional help that the city didn't have to incur. So I just can't thank everyone enough that steps up to help us in so many ways. And thank you for all you do.
So I have to add to that because I have been around when you weren't really running the volunteering program. We just had some volunteers, and you should also take a ton of credit because none of the events that I have ever been part of, especially with the Christmas in Meridian and the Wonderland Festival, they operate completely different, and that's all because of you. So thank you so much for
I really
everything
appreciate
that you've
that.
done. Yeah, it's huge.
Thank you.
So I just want everyone to know, if you haven't worked with Barb, she's amazing and can get volunteers, and she's right. She moves them in and out quickly so they don't get too tired, or if there's an issue, she handles it. And I know that your husband also helps. And so both of you are really appreciated.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he's kind of married into a package deal here. I didn't give you a little bit of background on me, but I've been with the city almost 10 years now in December, and the first 6.5 were part-time, and that's because I took the Public Safety Academy, and I learned what volunteers do for the city, and next thing I knew, I was at the police department part-time, helping them with all of their educational events, and then when the city brought on these other programs as far as the Park Ambassador program, and out here in the lobby, I was asked to come on full-time, and then moved into the Parks Department for the past 3.5 years, so it's been a great journey. And I have a very varied background. I have a legal assistant degree, a theater arts degree, spent 28 years in Las Vegas working with Cirque du Soleil, being a penguin feeder for Wayne Newton, and in the grocery industry, and all sorts of crazy things. So I think it kind of equipped me for whatever Renee throws at me, I'm going to tap dance my way through it.
That just added some light to the situation. I had no idea. You were so amazing. Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to add a word. I have a workspace next to Barb, and what you say is so true. She's a little bit older than she looks, and her energy never flags. She works like a machine, and she never forgets that she's recruiting volunteers. She's very polite, but she's good at being aggressive in a friendly way, and just keeps that in mind all the time. And today, I guess the other thing I'd like to add is that she really treats her volunteers like a community. She takes care of them, the front desk people, she made a card for an ailing dog today. One of the women at the front desk, who's a widow. Barb just, doesn't spend a lot of time on that, but she gets through a to-do list, and it includes things like that. And it's good energy, and I just can't help but notice being right next door to you. And so I thought I'd provide that eyewitness account. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have an 84-year-old lady at the front desk, and she used to do it with her husband, and he's since passed away, and so now she adopted an elderly dog, and she didn't want to get a puppy because she's 84, but Gordy, who's named after her husband Gordon, is not doing very well, so we put a get well card in the mail today for the dog.
Aww,
so
that's too bad.
Dom probably appreciates that.
Madam President, excuse me, it is allergy season and my voice is going everywhere. Madam President, Barb, absolutely, anything that has to do with dogs, I'm on board. And I'd like to put in a card for her as well, if possible. I will bring one in tomorrow.
Okay, she's sweet.
Madam President, to add on, Barb, one of the requirements in California, and I'm not familiar with high schools in Idaho yet, but one of the requirements in California to graduate high school is 40 hours. Every senior has to complete 40 hours of community service before they can graduate. And they can have 4.0s, they could be the valedictorian, but if they do not have those 40 hours a week signed off, they are not graduating. And I completed over 40 hours simply because after those 40 hours were up, I fell in love with volunteering. And it's such an integral part. You know, you're not being paid monetarily, but you're being paid back in something that's so much more important, and that is the positive impact that you're having in the community and the people that you are affecting. And so, I mean, I am in awe at the accomplishments that you have achieved since taking over. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Our community, our city, our country cannot progress or cannot survive without volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you're able to attend. The mayor does a volunteer appreciation event. April is National Volunteer Appreciation Month, and the mayor does something for all the other commissions and people throughout the rest of the city. Because what I've shown you is just a small portion of the numbers for all of City Hall. But she talks about that. And when you think about it, you know, our art gallery upstairs is run by volunteers. Our history museum down here is by volunteers. It just goes on and on. Anything that's special in Meridian, there's probably a heavy volunteer base behind it that makes it happen, or we couldn't afford it as a city.
It's true. And being a volunteer, I feel like the city is really good about appreciating and showing appreciation. So I certainly feel appreciated. You guys do a lot of nice things.
Good. Well, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
I have a couple things. Barb, first of all, based on your experience, you look amazing for 120. So one question, Coliani said your volunteers need to be 18. What was the reasoning for that?
I think otherwise he feels we should have a waiver that the parents sign to take any liability off the city.
I'm okay with that.
It would be a little bit tricky because a lot of these people I see for the first time, you know, 15 minutes before the parade starts. They just come in here and they may have signed up on volunteermatch.org or justserve.org, or I've found them through businesses that bring them in. So that's kind of our first encounter with them. But
is there a way that we could get a document that could be loaded to those sites so that they can either print it or do an online version of signing?
I can certainly work with the legal department on that.
It just seems, if it seems like a small effort for what might be a huge part of your volunteers, and I just posted it on Facebook. I took a picture and
wonderful.
posted it. So hopefully that'll help, but that just seems kind of, I understand needing, you know, not want to take the liability for minors, but it seems like there's a way around that as well.
Yeah.
You can help figure that out.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Barb.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do you want to go to old business and staff reports and then come up with the comments for our tours? How did you want to do that, Steve?
I would say go ahead and do the old business with Kim's presentation, and let's make the discussion part of the staff reports.
All right, perfect. Okay, so old business, we have the 5 Mile Creek Pathway Trailhead at 10 Mile Road update with Kim Warren.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, new commissioners. Mr. Gelsomino, I am right there with you on the allergic voice, so bear with me if it doesn't sound good. So just a quick update to those of you who weren't here when I was before you several months ago. We have this trailhead project idea, and it's really aimed at making our trails and pathways visible to the community, creating some identity, having an entryway to pathways that's not exactly a park, but functions as a gateway and just furthers the awareness of our pathway system. So that's the short version of why we're doing this project. Quick site orientation. This is an aerial photo on 10 Mile, looking north. This red line is the 5 Mile Creek Pathway. It's existing except for the crossing here. And then the shaded area is the site currently owned by ACHD. It's about 1.5 acres, and they have offered it to us to construct this trailhead project that's really proximate to the trail, and we're also working out a crossing as part of their bridge widening project. So we're working with them on a cost share, which is an advantage to the city. We are trying to stay in line with ACHD's schedule, which is roadway design this year. They're most of the way through it. And we are working with them. We've submitted designs for a parking area. It's kind of, well, I'll explain more about it in a minute. In 2019, they'll procure right-of-way, and while they're doing that, we will work on design of the rest of the site beyond the basic infrastructure that we're including with the cost share. And then in 2020, construction. We'll need to wait just a bit, obviously, until the entry to the trailhead and the roadway edge is complete, but we'll be short on the heels of that. As part of the project, we talked a lot about pedestrian crossings, both of 10 Mile Road and at 5 Mile Creek. So 10 Mile, we were out there on one of our special Park Commission meetings when we rode bicycles and tried to cross at that.
I almost got ran over.
It was scary. Even, you know,
scary.
at 7:30 in the evening, 10 Mile, it's narrow, but there's no shoulder. Anyway, so it's really wonderful that with the road widening project, we will have a signaled pedestrian crossing shown right here. So this, obviously the engineering, this is not the 95% plan, but it's the most friendly engineering document or graphic of the crossing. So I'll try to orient you. Again, they're mostly concerned with the roadway, and we're interested in the pathway, which starts on the north side of 5 Mile Creek, near Rita Husky Park. And so it will come to the roadway, and then we will have a wide pedestrian element of the bridge widening project. And we ask for, typically they'll do 6 feet or, I don't, is it 5 or 6? It's not wide enough. And we said we'd like it to be at least 10. And the way the roadway design worked with these, there's 5 Mile Creek and there's another irrigation channel there. And so we ended up with 14 feet for most of that pedestrian crossing that we didn't ask for and we won't pay for, but we'll be there for some of it. So that's kind of a nice surprise and benefit. So we did do an original concept. Joe, watch me on my time, please, because I'm trying to be quick. We did a preliminary concept I think you've seen, very rough, just thinking that we'd have one access road, some parking, and just kind of show this or conceive of it in a conceptual fashion with amenities for bicyclists and pedestrians, possibly a future restroom, some water, some shade, some bike repair stations, but had a very vague idea of how that might happen on the site. And then moving forward, just with that rough concept, we did get permission from council during the budgeting process for fiscal year 19 to go ahead with this project and the cost share. So we have submitted an agreement to ACHD. We submitted it, I think it was end of July, but it's still kind of going back and forth in terms of specific details and tweaking just to make sure we're covering everything. So I mentioned the pedestrian bridge component. We will do a topographic survey as part of that because they're giving us the parcel. We need to be able to define the legal boundary of the site in order to add it to our land holdings. Anyway, that's part of the process. So we're getting that taken care of, this step. And then we have ACHD's civil engineering consultant who's submitted a scope of work to do design for some of the basic infrastructure, parking and pathways, utility stubs, and concrete work. So
Kim, is ACHD then constructing all of this?
I think I will explain it as we get going. Okay. It's been a little bit odd to work out because we're trying to give them a hard line drawing of exactly what we want them to do before we've actually designed the entirety of the site. So no, we didn't want to include all of it with the roadway project, and no offense to Mr. Pepin, we wanted landscape architects to be heavily involved in the design and leave the engineers to do parking. So we tried to draw the line that way. I'm sure you're a very creative engineer. Anyway, so we've done some concept refinement, and did end up giving them a drawing that looked like this. And then they have provided us with a scope of work and fee proposal, and we're in the process of simplifying that just a bit. But to get to this drawing that you see here, I felt like it was necessary to kind of put on the landscape architect hat and think about how the site might work as a whole before we commit to a parking lot. There weren't a lot of options for the parking lot, but I wanted to be sure that what we were asking for would work with the design that we might come up with. So did a concept that's a little more detailed. It's still pretty rough. Parking count went down a bit. It's still right around 30, so that does account for accessibility, and it leaves some room for pedestrian access from the pathway system. ACHD is giving us the property, but they will need access to their stormwater facility here, either on the north or the south. We're still working that out. And we showed some of these initial ideas to Nampa Meridian because they have currently an access road here on the south, and they need to access for occasional maintenance. And they were actually great. They said we need to get some water in a pipe across the site to deliver to a neighborhood on the south, so could we have an easement across the parcel? And then they were really agreeable about being able to work their equipment in either over the bridge, if it would fit on that 14-foot wide bridge, and access any creek maintenance from here. I think we'll also probably do a rolled curb, and this is pathway. So they also said they'd like us to stay out of their easement, surprise. So, with heavy landscape, or we did show some pathway, but not much. So the idea, and I'm crediting Mike with this because he just came in and drew a couple of lines, and it worked out really well, I think. But we're trying to introduce this idea of creek, and thinking that if people come to a trailhead and they drive to one, they may be riding bikes and offloading bikes. And so the idea is that if you offload into a center aisle, maybe there's a concrete element that's kind of like a wide sidewalk, not really to encourage people to ride down the middle of the parking lot, but they're probably going to be doing that anyway if they have bikes. So that being kind of a creek-like element that would then connect up north to the pathway and or across if people want to go west. So that's the rough idea, a plaza that would have art and possibly some stations for bike repair. Again, it's still pretty rough. I think at some point, in fact, I talked to a landscape architect associate friend who mentioned that a lot of pathways just don't have restrooms. So I think ultimately that's important. This could be an area, I think, that hosted. It's not big for something like a race, but it could be a way station along the way. I mean, trying to think, is Meridian a place that one day hosts, well, I know things happen already, but this could be part of that and function as a site where a little bit open area, otherwise pretty low maintenance landscape, thinking pretty low water use. So moving forward, the engineering scope of work that was submitted was pretty involved. It was kind of ACHD's process, and I think we can do more of a city process. So we're going to try to simplify that and then finalize the specifics of the cost share. As I mentioned, the topographic survey is part of transferring the property, so that's underway. We will contract with the landscape architectural firm to take the concept and improve upon it and do a full site design with construction documents. We'd also, along the way, we'll stay in touch with Hillary and the Art Commission and likely other representatives to integrate art and signage and meet our goal of branding and trying to create a unique identity for pathways. And then start looking at costs. We don't have a lot of updated cost information now. We're also, and I didn't mention it as I went along, but in doing research, had run across mention of Trail Hub instead of Trailhead, which I thought may not quite be what we have right now, but I liked, just from a brand perspective and a kind of something a little more interesting, like the idea of hubs. So that's what these look like, kind of bicycle wheel cog hub parts. I've included those just kind of as just to to throw the idea out there. So we can talk some more about that. Again, I don't think we're looking for any specific direction, but I would invite your comments and answer any questions.
I like the hub idea because I think it doesn't define a beginning or an end. It's just saying that it's a system.
System, and very social and communal in a way, like where things come together.
Mm-hmm. And the design looks really good. I like the little pathway through the center of that.
Yeah, it was, Mike and I talked about it, but he came in and drew 2 lines, and it was better than anything I'd worked on in 3 hours. And so, and I am willing to admit it. No, but yeah, we were going for something that wouldn't add a lot of cost to what's a pretty basic parking lot. I think that engineers might think it's a little odd, but so far no one's complained. But yeah, just a really, almost like, not a glamorous, but a suggestion of an art element that's functional within the parking lot itself. So,
well, not just functional, but it's also long-term planning in a sense, where you're actually incorporating all of the elements that we're now going back and trying to incorporate into existing park areas. So I think it's fabulous.
I had that idea when we were talking about art in parks that at least in drawing this either at the center of the plaza with art, or I could almost envision a really tall sign element that you drove through on a bike. Or so I definitely art that functions as landmark. I think that you could see from across the pathway if you're over at Rita Husky, or yeah, that was an interesting conversation to have relative to this site, I think.
I like the idea of the restroom because, again, if they're using this as that starting point or whatever, if you've got kids, it's a great thing. And, yeah, you're going by parks, but usually it's a ways down the pathway. So I think that's a really great idea.
And I think, Madam President and Commissioner Steele, it's just so much more cost effective to think ahead, even if we never used a sewer stub, to put one in, because very likely we will. So thanks for your comment.
Madam President.
Yes.
Kim, so the question that I have regarding the bike stations, because I know that we are installing new bike stations as part of the MIAC participatory budget, my question is, will the bike station that is going to be set up, are they going to be the ones that were included in the participatory budget, or are they going to be separate from that? Just to get a quick clarification.
I don't think they would be because of timing, just because we won't get to construction of this until 2020. Is that true, Mike?
It won't be one of those, but it will be the same brand, same style, flavor, whatever. Yeah.
Anything else?
Is that all?
No more comments?
Madam President?
Yes.
This looks really cool, and the pathway through the parking lot is neat. Is this going to have to come before council, or is it already done what it needs to be done?
Dun, dun, dun.
It'll come before council. We the cost share agreement specifically has to be approved by council in order to move forward.
I thought so. And so my only advice, I guess, would be they're going to be asked, exactly how much more does this cost than just putting in a plain parking lot? So I'm just letting you know so you can be prepared. That doesn't mean they're going to deny it, but if that number is large, it could become an issue. But I can almost guarantee you that question will come up. So rather than saying, oh, let me get that, know what that is, unless it is too big, then don't bring it. No, I'm just kidding.
Then I'm just going to give you.
Madam Commissioner and Councilman Milam, point well taken. And I think we were thinking along those lines, concrete per square foot is more, and you'd have to form it. And but as a material, pretty inexpensive, hoping that the cost savings for the cost share would offset to a satisfactory degree the additional cost that might be involved in a slightly more expensive material.
Yeah.
So we'll have numbers or more specific cost information in a few months. So of course we'll Noted. Thank you.
Including the value of the property, right? Because that would be essentially like a savings that you're not paying for. Do they have a monetary value on
I think let's see, this was some of the previous presentation. So in terms of just some of our assumptions early on when we were looking at a budget request, yeah, a few fewer parking spaces. We did get a little more pathway. Yeah, so there was some estimated savings, and yeah, that we didn't try to quantify the land, but that is worth reminding. I mean, that was really what catalyzed this idea, was the potential to have 1.5 acres of trailhead property just gifted.
Madam President.
Building off of really good advice, yes.
So for those of you who weren't just sitting there glued to your monitors watching our exciting budget hearing, this was not unanimous, and which is why I tell you to just kind of think cautionly a little bit. The only reason it was approved was because of the land and the share, this cost savings. So thinking that's a savings that you can add back in isn't, I don't think, a safe assumption. Because that's the only reason this was, I should say the main reasons that this was approved in the budget by council. And it wasn't, like I said, it was not just an easy, unanimous, yeah. So just bear caution, because I was a proponent of this, and I think it should have a bathroom as well. But I'm only one vote. So.
The logic being that you're spending money to buy something on sale, but you're still spending money, essentially.
Right. Well, you buy twice as many things because it's on sale. You spend the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you never wear half of it because it's ugly.
Thanks for your comment. I totally relate.
Really cheap, right?
Madam President?
Yes.
Just to be clear, that this trailhead does not have a bathroom. It has the stubs.
The stub, right.
It has water, power, sewer stubbed to the site, but no restroom.
For future potential restroom.
So, and the kind of the curvy concrete down the center of the parking lot, a lot of parking lots have a drainage swale in the center of them.
I was going to say, is the
so
valley
you
gutter.
can combine, instead of making it a completely straight drainage swale down the center of the parking lot, you can curve it. So it really doesn't add a whole lot of cost to it. Just my 2 cents.
Potentially, maybe as it's proposed, having them as bid or add alternates as a suggestion, just to throw it out there, so that maybe if there was some kind of issue with cost, you guys could break down what would be the most important.
So, and Madam Commissioner, we did provide them with an AutoCAD drawing. It still needs some design development, but I think that as a landscape architect, I was, I wanted it to look creek-like. I didn't want those lines to be perfectly offset.
Right.
And so that did, in terms of the fee proposal, which we're still trying to simplify, but allowed us to come in at 30% design instead of the consultant starting from scratch. So again,
that's true.
That gained us a little bit of a cost edge. But yes, an alternate.
I just really want it to be approved, so I'm just...
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have alternatives. I just think be cautious. Just know your audience, and know the answer to that question. And as long as you're within budget, it's probably not going to be an issue. But the question will probably come up because it's not something they see, because it's like, ooh, that's neat. How much does that cost? Kind of deal. So.
Yes.
No, not trying to scare you off or put a damper on this in any way. I know it doesn't have a bathroom, but I think it should. I'm glad we're putting the stub in, because I think it's a great location for bathroom.
Yeah, and I think we should be clear on future. But yeah, we do anticipate those questions. So, and we tried to, it's not exactly art, but try to keep it evocative of art, but really, really simple materials. So maybe we can be creative in how we talk about it. Okay. Any other questions?
Excellent.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, so that moves on to staff reports.
Should we jump into the 4E and F as the beginning of that?
That sounds fabulous.
All right, so 4E, July Team Building Activity Debrief. We go back in your memory banks to July. We met up in Hillsdale Park. We had a tour of the YMCA. Had a barbecue there, met with the Hills, and anyway, had our team building activity then. I would just welcome any feedback, comments, and it would be our intent to do something like it somewhere else next year in the summer if the commission likes the idea of continuing the team building activity.
So, Steve, I really enjoyed it. I think that the tour in the YMCA building, maybe, I know that we're asking for someone to give us a tour, but maybe a little direction of what they are trying to explain, because some of the information I felt was, of course, it's going to be a little bit of a sales pitch, but it kind of, some of it got a little lengthy. But I did really appreciate going through the building. It was gorgeous. And so it kind of makes sense.
I liked going down the slide myself, but...
What's that?
I liked going down
the
slide
at
the
slide.
end.
Well, there's a selfie spot in the building just for me. So but I thought it was really awesome. I liked that tour. Anyone else?
Madam President, I just want to say I really enjoyed the tour. This is my third year, I believe, going on the tour, and each one of them I feel I've liked more and more. I liked this year's, the way that the presentations were given, and as far as going through exactly what was coming up next and talking about it in the bus, that was really great, and I thought everything was coordinated very well.
Yeah.
Madam President, I was unfortunately unable to attend the July one, so I would prefer to have another one this coming summer so I can actually participate.
Aww. Yeah, it was nice.
Madam President?
Yes.
If you're not present for last year's, you have to host next year's.
Wait a minute. What would we tour? We can tour the college. I gave you a tour of my building. It's actually pretty fabulous.
Sitting here today, I can't say whether or not Discovery Park will be officially open or not by then. We'll be getting close, but that's certainly on the radar of possibilities.
Yeah.
Grass will be ready. We could have softball.
That's right.
Oh, yes, because someone wants a softball tournament.
Well, we can transition. Jessica's comment, Commissioner West's comment, was right on line with the next item, which was the September facilities tour debrief for the Parks tour, which we did get on the bus and go site to site. It also started at Hillsdale, but then we went to the various sites, including Discovery Park to see it under construction, Fuller Park, walked part of the new pathway segment from Fairview to Badley, and then back to the beginning. Along the way, got updates on sports, events, classes and camps, volunteers, maintenance, forestry, etc. We like September timeframe for that, and would welcome any feedback on the Parks tour as well.
I have to agree with Jessica that after having attended several of those tours, that it's not that each one is better, but they're all unique and different. So you get something different out of each tour, and so it's really appreciated the time and effort that goes into that. I know that's a lot of planning, and I do like that you have people speak to kind of give updates on different things, because it helps us also kind of connect with other Parks and Rec staff.
Madam President, I would agree completely, and I want to give a huge shout out and kudos to Rachel for all of her effort.
Yeah. AKA Rachel, thank you.
Madam President.
Yes.
I don't remember what came up that I missed it this year. I love this tour, except for the time. I'm going to say that again. It's kind of late. So if I go on the tour, I miss my family and don't get to see them until the next day. And that's hard for me because I do it Tuesday night. So 2 nights in a row is rough.
Right.
But that's just my 2 cents, and I'm only one person. And I still go when I can, but it is hard on me in that way, unless I leave early or something.
Madam President, I would just offer that, we want to try and find the time that is the best for the most.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's easier on staff to do it during the day. So we would love nothing more than an afternoon tour. But I also know we have a lot of working people both on the commission and council. I don't know if a daytime tour would work, but I can tell you as staff, we're certainly open to it.
And I don't necessarily mean it, even daytime would be great for me. I understand everybody's schedule can't accommodate that, but I'm saying even just a little earlier, 4:30, 4 o'clock, not like noon to 3, but 4 till 7. Lets people go home and spend. If a lot of times people can get somewhere by 4, they leave an hour early or something. And I know that you put out. I think we talked about this before, and maybe you asked everybody, and that wasn't really possible, but. I'm just, we have also a different commission now, and other.
We have brought up the
councilmen.
idea and asked for some feedback. It's been more, it hasn't been like a formal survey, but we have asked, and the feedback that we received was that evening was best. But I would ask, what if we weren't just thinking about afternoon versus evening, and the idea of starting a little earlier versus starting after work? Comments, does that make it harder or easier for the commissioners?
Madam President.
Yes.
Nobody put a bullseye on my back yet, but could we potentially, excuse me, it's only a few hours out of one day. Is there a consideration for maybe a Saturday or a Sunday? I know most people do work on weekends as well, but would a weekend work? Either a Saturday or Sunday. Sunday's a little bit more difficult, so maybe a Saturday would provide a little bit more flexibility.
I think the problem is with it being a city-hosted event too. I don't know how it is with you guys, but I wouldn't want to have it on a Saturday. I like having it in the maybe early afternoon, starting earlier. We started commission meetings earlier at 5:30. They used to start later. That was so that we could get out of here before 10 o'clock because they used to go a lot longer. But also, if they're not back-to-back to council meetings, there's also potential to have it on a Thursday, or I don't know if Friday's a good day, but yeah. I agree that we should try to be as flexible as possible. But I like to keep it in the week because my weekends are...
I would just say that, we're not completely allergic to Saturdays. We do events on Saturdays all the time, but I think our attendance would go way down if we tried that, is what my gut feeling is. What we could do, we could put together a really simple survey and just ask the commissioners and the council, give it a variety of time options and see what works best.
I think that would be awesome. Thank you.
We'll probably get answers all over the spectrum and still not know what to do.
Well, for some people, it might be nice to have an excuse to leave work early. I'm done early anyway, so.
Madam President.
Madam President.
I agree completely, because as someone who does work and works whatever hours I need to work, if I know month, 2 month, 3 months in advance, it's just something you schedule and say on that day and that month, I'm not available at 4 o'clock, sorry.
I actually think it might be interesting to try that earlier time one year and see how it goes, and just, maybe try a 4 o'clock time so that it's not just completely eating up your afternoon at work either, but it's also not eating up your entire evening and your ability to be with your family. So we kind of split.
And we still have daylight.
And we're not fighting the sun
President.
Going down.
Yeah, I think taking off early from work's not a big deal. For me. The other thing is, if it's at 4 o'clock, what I was going to say originally was, again, don't put a target on it. We could cut out the dinner food, right, and just do the tour. Although if it's at 5, 6 o'clock, people get hungry. If it's at 4, well, if the tour's over by 6:30, then okay, half the time I don't eat. I don't know how important the food part of it is.
Madam President,
yeah.
I love your.
I know. I like the social part of it.
If we start at 4, we're still getting done at dark. It's just going to happen because we're rushed every year. I've been on this thing every year for years,
true.
and we never get out of there before dark because there is so much great stuff to see in our parks.
That's true.
We've got new parks. We've got different things going on, everything that we do in the park system. So we could start it at 2 o'clock, and I swear it'd still be done at dark. You know, it's a great idea, and I totally agree getting off earlier and starting earlier, I think, is fine. Everybody's got plenty of time, but part of the advantage of that, too, is there's always places where people in the past have jumped off the tour because they knew they had something else to go to. And I think every year we've lost somebody somewhere along the line to where they just had a car waiting for them. You know, so things like that, I think starting it early let's try it. I think it'd be a great idea, but we're still going to go till dark. I guarantee it.
You're right. And didn't we have 1 year where we started the tour and then we stopped at a park and ate and then continued, right? When we went to, was it Tully Park?
I think we have. We've done it before. We've
eaten on the bus,
started off
too.
Eating on the, we had a presentation, got on the bus and handed dinners on the bus. We got a lot of feedback that eating on the bus wasn't the best idea. It was awkward. You're trying to hold your packet and your food.
There's no cup holder, that's why.
But we could just start the tour and eat somewhere along the way or afterwards or whatever, depending on the timing. But
sorry, somebody had something and I cut
Madam
it.
President, all of these comments are vetted at multiple departments every year, whether it's the Public Works Expo, or it's their tour, or it's Steve and his teams put together for this commission and the council members or the public. It's always going to be, how can you please,
Discussion,
all.
right?
So
Yeah.
just from experience, you guys do a great job, so I'll be there.
thank you. I think we might just hold on to the idea of maybe an earlier start time and put that out there. It's almost a year from now, so I got a little time to think about it and adjust. But I think we'll put that on the radar as the tentative plan and confirm that with you as we get closer. Okay?
Madam President,
Yes,
sorry, just real quick.
okay.
And I am not asking you to change the time for me. So please, I don't want any of you take it the wrong way. I'm just throwing out my 2 cents, and there might be other people that feel the same way that would go if it didn't end so early. And as far as the food goes, that's bribery to get people to show up. And nobody would show up on Saturday, but they will show up if there's food, and that's just human nature, I think.
Completely agree. And if it means you're going to be there to play on the playground equipment, I had no one to do that with. So I would prefer that we change the time for you. Just saying. Okay, do you have any more? So those were the 2 items. So I guess then we have staff reports.
So staff reports, I kind of went over the Fuller Park, which is kind of what I thought was the big deal to go over with the commission right now. We're at the end of the fiscal year, starting a new fiscal year. All of the end of season items are going on. We got within the department, we're working on efforts related to our comprehensive financial plan, which is the first step in getting ready for next year's budget already. Working on items to priority-based budgeting, succession planning, a host of other things. But like Shelley said, this is not a downtime for us. It is really busy, lots going on, but it's an exciting time to do what we love to do. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I have any questions?
Madam President, so how is construction going on at Discovery Park?
Transition.
Mike.
So I was going to give you an update. So we were all out there almost a month ago and saw the progress. So right now, the things that are going, the softball fields have grass seed that's about 1 inch high. The lights are up and working. The parking lot's getting paved this week. Work on Lake Hazel Road is happening with widening turn lanes, deceleration lane and acceleration lanes. The south side is paved. The north side's waiting for some utility infrastructure to get out of the way, and then they're going to go right into pave that. The dog park is being excavated and happening. We've got change orders that have gone through council to approve the extra picnic shelters that were approved as part of a budget amendment, the dog park, the walkway areas, the playgrounds. The wall is going to go up this week. There's concrete sidewalks going in everywhere. There's a ton of progress. I mean, the irrigation system is almost complete. The pump system is in. Yeah, ball field grass, I think I mentioned that. So it's amazing, and it's getting really, really fun. We're working with Stephanie Inman to, if you remember, about a year ago, we talked about some signage and making some refinements on that. And at the next commission meeting, she's going to bring some, she'll bring a presentation with some models that show you guys what we're talking about for signage. We're developing a sign package for the park that includes, you know, these interpretive gardens that are going to go in. There'll be some explanations with that, and maybe if it's a pollinator garden, there might be a butterfly or a bee that you can stick your head through, or kids can stick their head through and get a picture, and some really fun stuff. It's just awesome and amazing. You know, aside from that, I mean, the big take-home message is that we're on schedule and we're on budget. And in this construction climate, it's just, you know, we're working hard to keep our costs down and control good ideas. Everybody, you know, you sit around and work through some of this stuff, and the good ideas or the creative juices start flowing, but they all come with a consequence, and it usually leads to money. So we're actively making it cool and suppressing the cost at the same time. So we got pictures of the climbing map that's being built, and they've got this great big steel frame that's 9 feet high and 10 or 12 feet wide. That is, they're doing the concrete and the contours, the geographical contours that can be used as hand and footholds. Then they'll start painting that. That's scheduled to be delivered sometime around the middle of November. So they got to crane it in and do that. But it's really going to take shape, and it's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool.
Madam President.
Yes.
A very quick comment. I want to commend the engaging, interactive, functional pieces that will go into Discovery Park. And I say that going back to Commissioner West's points this morning, or this evening, earlier this evening, about the functionality of art and engaging, interactive, educational resources on our parks. I serve as a healthcare agent in my career, and for the last month and a half, I was serving as a healthcare agent for elementary school kids at Wilder Elementary. And for them, a field trip is a trip to MK Nature Center. Mm-hmm. When the teacher found out that I sat on this commission, and she had me kind of talk about it to the kids, and I brought up Discovery Park, their eyes lit up at the thought of a rock climbing wall that teaches them about the geography of our state, the 44 counties. You know, just like you mentioned, the bees or the butterflies that teach us about why the conservation of our environment and our wildlife is important to the continuation of humankind. I mean, if we don't have bees, we have no pollination, we have no flowers, we have no oxygen, no honey. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I really want to commend the commission on, or the Parks and Recreation Department on that, because we need more. We need to educate our kids and our future generations outside of the classroom, and that's an incredible way to do it.
Thank you for that.
Madam President, one of the items to just play off of that I'm most excited about are these art panels that are going on the playground. You know, you have these plastic panels that are functionally just to keep from falling off. Well, why can't it be more than that? Why can't it tell a story and educate kids? And we've talked about this before. You've seen mock-ups, the big art panels with like the state flower on one side and then other Idaho flowers on the other side. So they'll be two-sided, outward-facing, inward-facing, and will be great educational tools as well as fun play elements. So.
And it's almost like incidental learning, because as they're waiting for their turn to do something, there's something to read. And so that's what I like about it, is that they're not forced, right? So it's just something that you accidentally learn. I was impressed by the construction of that park. I had no idea it was that far along.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's in the last month, it's changed quite a bit.
And to hear on budget and on schedule in the same sentence is, wow, I'm impressed by that. So not because you guys don't do it, but just in general for construction. Let me take that back. That was not a dig at you.
We have a good design and construction team, as well as a lot of input from staff, and it's been a great process all along that's allowed us to do that.
I can't wait. Anyone else? Is that it? Is that a wrap? Okay, so if we have nothing else, then I need a motion to adjourn.
Madam President?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Can I get a second?
Madam President, I second the motion that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Commission meeting is adjourned.
Madam President, you do have a gavel now.
I know. Well, it's been up here. I haven't used it yet. I've thought about it at times, but...
I think there's only been one that's used that. One president. It's always been just